All right, my man, we are live, and I'm excited to do this. As a matter of fact, uh, you and I have had the opportunity to become fast friends, and I think this is just a completely natural outgrowth of the friendship and the strategic partnership that we've developed. So, my man, Justin Silver, the co-founder of Motives, I'm happy to share the time with you on LinkedIn. How you doing, buddy?
Doing fantastic. Yeah, it's definitely great to be here doing this together. Been long time coming, so looking forward to it.
I think the funniest part about this, Justin, is that the two of us, uh, first of all, we're brought together because of our good buddy, Mr. Scott Trainer. So I got to give him a quick shout out. And little did we know that we lived in the same town, which I thought was like the funniest thing in the world. Here we are, kind of circling each other on the business front, and at the end of the day, the two of us are, I don't know, literally maybe 2 miles apart.
Yeah, I mean, I joke, but I could probably walk to your house, and I thought that was crazy. I'd heard your name so many times coming around. Got to meet this guy, and then when we found out we lived in the same town. It's just I was like, when you talk about the world gets small, everyone's telling me how the automotive industry and it's expansive and whatever else, but it gets small real quick. I didn't realize it was going to get that small that quick.
Well,
So it's pretty
yeah, I
cool.
mean, my buddy, Mr. Marvelous Ron Marvo, and I talk about this ad nauseum, that there are no coincidences, there's no accidents. The fact that we got a chance to cross paths and that we get a chance to really collaborate in a really meaningful way to deliver something that I really believe that we're going to talk about today, that I really believe is an opportunity for auto dealers to level up with respect to how they grow their business. We're going to talk a little bit about all of the ways that they can utilize and repurpose the information that Motives delivers, and it's really the reason why you and I saw this opportunity in the first place. It was a chance to take the analog and digitize it and really put prospecting, if you will, on steroids, and use vehicle acquisition on steroids. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as we move forward. But talk a little bit about the emanation of Motives, so people have a good background for the company and how you got started and what your background is, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll just kind of give a quick backdrop first. So my background is, well, by education is in computer science. However, I realized very quickly that coding is not for me. As a extrovert, sitting behind a desk and doing coding just wasn't the way. But
Hmm.
quickly found my way into the insurance industry. And actually, you and I have riffed on this a little bit, but the insurance backdrop of my family actually does have some intersections back to your family in New Jersey auto
That's
dealerships
right. That's
going
right.
going all the way back. My dad brought that to my attention when I was telling him a little about this guy Sandy that I met. But the insurance industry was kind of my backdrop and where I played, but always had this underpinning of tech, and had the entrepreneurial itch and have built and developed multiple companies. But with Motive specifically, just really looking at the problems that exist within the dealership, one just jumped out at us at the center of the insurance problem. This was that people are verifying insurance in a very manual and outdated way, and in doing so, also are exposing customer data. And then serendipitously, as we were going through that, regulations started coming down, and it just said, "Man, this is something that's right for the undertaking." But in meeting you, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, what we really realize is that all we're doing is taking something old and we've made it new, but by making it new, we're unlocking something completely different. And so that's what excites me the most about what we're up to.
Yeah, no question about it. It's funny because I think back to the early conversations that we had, and they were literally just conversations, born of curiosity. A shameless plug for the 7 pillars of killer business development. Pillar number 4 is converting everyday conversations into clients and opportunities. And so when you and I were talking early on, and you were explaining to me, ultimately what the focus for Motives was, I was saying to myself, man, there's more that we could do with this tool. There's more that we could do with the data that you have access to, and that really sparked some what I would consider to be very collaborative and very fruitful conversations between the two of us. I mean, we were on the phone, met over at your house, sat down and had a bourbon or two over at Aldo's, one of our local haunts. And every time we had more dialogue and more time to flesh through it, we figured out that there was a lot more that we could be doing together to advance the cause for not just us, but really for the automotive community at large. There's so many different ways that what we're talking about here today can positively impact operations on a profitability perspective, on a proficiency perspective, the ability to produce at an even higher rate, certainly with respect to guest experience and CSI. And we can segue into that as we move forward. But didn't it seem early on that like every time we had a conversation, we're like, there's something more here. We got to keep this conversation alive.
Yeah, I mean, you said it to me, and it's probably something that many say, but it really connected through those conversations where, insurance verification, and the problem that our solution solves inherently or at face value, that's what we want to talk about. People naturally want to talk about what they're offering,
Right.
but what we unlocked through those conversations was really a focus or flipping this whole thing on its head and really saying, what are dealer priorities? What is it that they really care about? Because when you come in and say, hey, dealership insurance verification, and you talk about their top priorities, that's not going to be number one. However, they recognize that, with the FTC compliance laws coming down, that they need to capture this information securely. They're looking for ways to streamline their process. Oh yeah, they know that they need to do some of these things, but there's so many things to do. And as Joel, our chief marketing officer, always says to us internally, you can do anything, you just can't do everything. And so I think what we're really talking about is how do we connect the things that you need to do to the things that you must do.
Well, yeah, I do know what you mean. And to that end, when we had the conversations, I think I said to you something along the lines of, it's just not sexy enough. We got to put a little more sex appeal into it. Those early conversations were like, watching me hop into a Speedo. There's nothing sexy about Sandy Cerami in a Speedo these days. But as we talked more through it, I said, you said to me, what were the things that were on the top of dealer and dealer operators and GM's minds? And I said, well, I can tell you right now, number one is used vehicle inventory acquisition. And with the data set that you guys have access to, which by the way is different than virtually anybody else in terms of a product or service offering in the marketplace today. Nobody else that I know of is providing this kind of data the way that you can. I said, if we can facilitate used vehicle inventory acquisition, I think it's a home run. And you said, well, how do you know? And I think we were sitting right at the bar at Aldo's, and I literally shot out like 7 or 8 text messages to dealer principals and GMs. And within about 5 to 7 minutes, we had an answer back from every single one of them, placing used vehicle inventory acquisition at either 1 or 2 in their list of priorities for 2025 and beyond. And our good friend Brian Kramer, you can't talk used vehicle acquisition without talking about Brian Kramer, said the same thing. He said, look, bro, this is going to be the difference maker. There are dealerships that are, most of them wildly effective at selling automobiles. It's where they fall down most is in the acquisition side for used vehicle inventory. And so when we started to talk in that regard, I think the entire conversation changed for the better. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And, to give a dual plug, I was just watching Brian on Brooks' podcast just the other day, talking about this very topic. An example where in the service drive, turning a car in for service into a acquisition moment, and then turning it into a sale of a new vehicle moment. And that's great when the vehicle is there and you know exactly what's in there. But one of the things that we're talking about here is really through the process of insurance verification, getting insight into the other vehicles and the other drivers are in the household.
And there it is.
And that's really at the crux of what we're talking about. There's so much more that we're going to talk about unlocking, but to connect the thread between, Motives Check My Driver and used vehicle acquisition from a first party perspective, you got to know what they have. And it's really, quite frankly, it's sitting there at your fingertips. It's just not being weaponized efficiently and effectively in the dealership.
Well, exactly right. And this is, Ron and I teach this every day in the dealerships that we work in and work with, and that is what we call own the driveway. And I said to you, you have now given us the opportunity to exponentially increase the proficiency of the own the driveway platform that we teach, which is let's prospect the entire household. We don't want to just sell one vehicle into a household. Depending on what statistics you're looking at on average 2.3 to 2.7 vehicles per U.S. household at this point. It makes no sense not to, number one, prospect into that household to sell them a second, a third, or even a fourth vehicle, and certainly to acquire additional used vehicle inventory. And this is literally a analog process that I've been working literally since 2005. And so it was born of, and I think I told you this story earlier, of an interaction between a repeat client of ours at our dealership who said to me as I went out to just thank them for their business once again. She says, "Sandy, you've got to help us. We need to get rid of the vehicles we've got in our driveway. We're starting to look like a used car lot." And it dawned on me, like, my God, man, here's an opportunity for me to sell another vehicle, which we did, by the way. Turned it in from a one car deal to a two car deal, and acquired four vehicles in the process. And so that was really the emanation of the own the driveway strategy that we began to employ in our dealership on a regular basis, and that we've been teaching, as I said, for the last 10, 12 years at Sandy Cerami and Associates. And so when you showed the data to me and we talked through this, I said, this is the best way to exponentially increase the power of prospecting and used vehicle acquisition. Two things that dealerships are keenly focused on, certainly in 2025.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's hawking, databases, and the reality is it's just stale, it's old, and the trusted source of this information, the closest you can get to the heartbeat, is what's on someone's policy, right?
Mhm.
And so if you think about it, really within your customers, as you're interacting with them in sales, you're selling them a new car, you're doing a test drive, or they're in service getting a loan or a rental vehicle, the opportunity to get visually inside their garage is it's already there, it's already accessible. And so instead of paying for campaigns and the data that behind these
Right.
campaigns, I mean, Sandy, I shared a story with you which was part of how we really were noodling this idea around, where literally on the same day my business partner Fred and I got a message from, I think it was Carfax or some other company, offering on behalf of my dealership and his dealership independently an offer for a vehicle. In my case, I had already sold them back and bought another car from them. So I don't know
Yeah.
how much they're spending to send that and solicit and to offer me, but what I'll tell you is it certainly left me with a feeling of something's missing. You're missing a piece of the puzzle because you don't even know what's going on. You're offering me things on things I don't have. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't create trust and loyalty, a sense of connection. Quite frankly, it did the opposite.
Yeah, I think it goes a long way in really eroding confidence in the dealership for sure. And when you think about this, there are big players out there that warehouse household vehicle data. I mean, Amazon Garage, who's bigger than Amazon? Even an Amazon Garage data set to me runs the risk of not being reliable and up to date, because at the end of the day, they're counting on the individual, right, the person that's entering the information who owns the vehicle, to remove the vehicle when they no longer own it. You follow
Exactly.
me? And so if they don't do that, then even Amazon Garage has old, outdated data sitting, in their data sets. And so you raise a great point. If you don't have clean data, there's going to be a lack of efficiency and certainly a lack of proficiency in the marketing campaigns that are tied to the data that they're pulling. So it's such a great point. Um, Talk a little bit about let's go to the validation and verification piece
Yeah.
of what you guys do, because I think that is worthy of sharing with the audience. They need to understand where the exposure really lies for them in terms of insurance verification. Talk a little bit about what your program does and why it's so much better than anything else that's on the marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, there's a few things, and at some level, I, I I think a lot of folks know some of what I'm about to share, but kind of set it off to the side for some reasons that we'll dig into. But starting at the most fundamental level, like dealerships today verify insurance when you buy a car for a number of reasons, whether it's because you need it for a loan stipulation, right? You need it to register a vehicle, and other
Mhm.
than I think about 2 states, you have to have insurance in order to get through the registration process. So you don't want to get stuck there. In service, your commercial insurance policies require you to have people that are driving your vehicles to have their own insurance, and so
Yep.
these processes already exist. So like there is no debate that verification is necessary. That's piece one. However, the data from the Insurance Institute suggests 1 in 7 people. Let me just say that 1 in 7 people, 51 million drivers in the United States, are uninsured or underinsured.
Yep.
And so to sit there and think that someone presents an ID card that could be printed today, right, shown to you tomorrow, but they canceled after they bought it, or whatever time might elapse, is a complete fallacy. There
Yep.
isn't verification actually happening other than in those dealers where in the sales process they're picking up the phone and calling, which I'll tell you in service, the customer experience does not allow or have room for picking up the phone and calling the insurance company, because those people want to get in their loaner and get out.
No
And
question.
so what we know is insurance verification is broken. It's this motion that's going through without the outcome for which its existence is being fulfilled. So when we
It's like it reminds me of the movie Tommy Boy, the guarantee on the outside of the box.
exactly, yeah, I love that. I love what you do. That's my
Yes.
favorite line with the door. Oh, love that
It's
movie.
so true. It's so true. But you and I watched it firsthand. We're gonna protect the folks. We're not gonna share the name of the dealership. You and I went specifically to a high volume dealership and watched this happen in two different instances where the only verification that was done was a copy of an insurance card. It was just literally a printed piece of paper that was provided by the driver. And in two instances, they had to actually go back out to the car. In one instance, the car had already been brought back into the lot and had to be brought back in. So there's a level of inefficiency in terms of how they process the guests through the loaner process in the first place. And that sparked another idea in terms of how to utilize the platform in a way to create a more proficient and a more seamless guest experience, in the service drive. Talk a little bit about that and what you saw and why it becomes such an important piece to the proficiency puzzle for every dealership in the service drive.
Yeah, I mean, time is money, and we live in a world where people want instant gratification. Don't
Mhm.
make me do something that one could have already been done, could have been done online, or I could have taken care of, quite frankly, before I even got there. And so, some of the things that we talked about were this world where repeat customers don't have to go through the same process, except with insurance. Like
Right.
if I'm Justin, I'm still Justin tomorrow, but if I bought insurance today, that does not mean that I have insurance tomorrow. So this is
Correct.
one of those things that requires an ongoing process each and every time. When you show up to your doctor's office, as frustrating as I watch people sitting there saying, "But I gave you my card last time." Do you know what they say? "Sorry, I need it again."
Yep.
Why? Because things change. And
Yep.
so the same thing exists. You got to ask over and over again. However, imagine where you could get that before they arrive. They have an appointment to come in, and you could run that before they even arrive in the lot, or as they're arriving. If you have the technology to know that they arrived at the lot, you can instantly trigger the process for them to go ahead and verify. Now, the new process, the way these things work, are much like connecting your bank to Venmo or to Zelle or to any of these other banking apps, where you pick your company, you enter your credentials, but you're not doing that every time. The next time you come in, or daily, or whatever cadence that you need to, or every moment, it will refresh. Well, we have the same capability. So we're not burdening the customers. Quite frankly, I've heard from dealers early on, "Oh, but this is going to cause friction because we're making our customer have to do something." What I saw that day in the dealership, I call that friction, making the guy go out to the glove box, because not only do they have to bring the car back, but the dealership couldn't take the card out of the glove box because the FTC requirements don't allow them to
Right.
have that kind of access to the private information that's sitting on that insurance card.
No
right?
question. No question about it. The guest experience, it is a focal point in every dealership, every OEM. Emphasizes the importance of the guest experience. We know from our own experience as guests and clients in other businesses what it makes us feel like, and so it's really important to put the shoe on the other foot and look at it objectively, which is hard to do. Which is why I wanted you to come in the first place, and I asked you to spend that time with me.
Yeah.
I think we spent like 5 hours that day inside the dealership, really working through some of those challenges. And I think you said this to me. You said that we have an equal opportunity to either delight or disappoint the guests that come into our service drive. And we saw some disappointment. We saw some folks that were frustrated, and not just the guests. We talk about, and these are added value aspects of what you and I have discussed over the last few weeks and months, which is we've got a turnover problem in the industry. Okay, it's anybody who wants to tell me otherwise lies about other things too, and I'll call them out on it. But the truth of the matter is that we go through people at the service advisor position, at the valet position, at the loaner desk position, at the cashier position more than we should, and a lot of it stems back from they've got a lot to do, and the more that we can simplify and the more that we can automate, so that the time that they do touch a guest or a client in the service drive is something that is a positive as opposed to a disappointment. I think that your platform does a whole lot to make that happen. That's one of the reasons that I'm working in that dealership that we went to visit in the first place. And I said to you, I think that there's a way that you guys can actually help us facilitate some of the change that we're making happen. And you saw what I saw.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's hard enough to win a customer,
Mhm.
right? But that's not where the job ends, right?
Correct.
So you invest all that time to win them over, and keeping them, quite frankly, shouldn't be that difficult. It really
Agreed.
should. It really shouldn't be that difficult. And then in doing so, the outcomes of treating the customers well beyond the sale will pay dividends exponentially, because of all the rules we can cite, all the folks that talk about selling someone a second time versus selling the first time, increasing wallet share in each transaction by selling
Mhm.
them more or additional products, it's just overall good for business. But happy staff definitely equates to happy and productive staff, proficient staff, as you kind of brought to my attention, equates to higher CSIs. Full stop.
Well, I mean, that's fact. That's a fact. And the other thing I'll tell you, and I'm just pulling something up real quickly as we're talking here, is we talked about the way that information is siloed, even within a given department, right?
Yeah.
Where the advisor has access to a piece of information, the loaner desk does not have access to, and vice versa. And those silos create the friction that we're talking about. They create high levels of disappointment. If we flip that model around, where we have the ability to safely and securely warehouse the data so that we're in compliance, and then be able to share that information interdepartmentally and intra-departmentally. I think what we create is, you and I talked about the halo effect. Instead of a silo, we create a halo effect, which means if we show proficiency and expertise and capability in one area of the business, the perception is that we're going to have that level of capability and expertise in other areas in our business. And there is, service sells the first vehicle and sales sells the first vehicle and service sells the ensuing vehicles after that. There's a perfect example of, not just doing something well for the sake of doing well, but doing well because it creates the perception that that's how the entire business is operated. And the minute we give them a chance for that confidence to erode in our ability to deliver the kind of experience that they're looking for, we get on a real slippery slope. And it's really tough to retain people, both internally as our associates and employees, and also our clients.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was an analogy yesterday. Darren Yeomans, our head of sales, shared the other day. He used this analogy of like a traffic circle. You have
Mhm.
customers that may enter your business in one way or another and anywhere, and no
Mhm.
matter where they come in and where they come out through that business experience, ultimately the end result, wherever they come out, should be, and they say that traffic circle, and the reason to use it is it's claimed to be, I believe still is, the most efficient traffic control device
Absolutely.
that's been invented. And so if you can bring that paradigm in, so for example, if you're in sales, how do you turn sales into more opportunity when you're selling by improving the customer experience? So from an insurance verification standpoint, right, there's an expectation that when I get the service, you're not going to make me be running to my glove box because you're doing it that way. Or if you're in service and you've got this express check-in and insurance verification, now I go to buy a car, in sales, and all of a sudden you're sitting there on the phone for 30 minutes with the insurance company. So what I'm getting at is that the business needs to look at this from a 360-degree view,
Yep.
and in order to execute it, requires a change in thought process, in people, in process, and in technology. And I think that for me, I think as you and I were talking about, like, two guys from Jersey, we live in the same town, we're jiving on all this stuff, but like, why is it that we come together? And that is that you're the Academy 365, and the principles that you're bringing to the dealerships are part of the story, are part of how dealerships can actually take advantage of these added benefits. We've got
Absolutely.
insurance verification in spades, but these other capabilities require things that, like you said, you've been talking about for years, and you've kind of imparted and embedded into your learning platform.
100%. It speaks to word tracks versus conceptuality, right? Meaning when we are able to teach our folks from a conceptual basis what it is we want to accomplish and deliver in the guest experience, we want to do it in a way that seems natural. It doesn't seem forced. It doesn't seem contrived, but it seems like this is how we go to market. This is how we serve our clients. Not that we're trying to force something upon them. And as I said to you, the way we do it with words, we do it with process. Your technology allows us to do it in spades. And I think I said to you, and Ron Marvel and I talk about it all the time. And this is another influence from Scott Joseph. Jay Abraham, the 3 ways to grow your business, right? Increase the number of customers, increase the average transaction value, or increase the frequency with which you're doing business with a given client. Or, by the way, there's a 4th, and that is to do all 3. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about here. The ability to, for instance, there's a lot of dealers that have made the move to servicing their non-OEM all makes and models. Meaning, if they're a Ford dealership, they're going to service any make or model. They don't really care. They've got technicians that can do basic maintenance on any of the vehicles in a given household. Well, I hear a lot of dealers push back and say, well, yeah, but my Lexus owner is not going to want to come to a Ford dealership for service. And I say, well, hold your horses. First of all, if you don't ask, you don't get the opportunity. And so at the very least, you should have it as part of your process that you solicit the opportunity to serve them. And if you do an exceptional job in taking care of them on their Ford vehicle, what makes you think they wouldn't want to come and do business with you for basic maintenance on their Lexus vehicle? Especially if you can impart to them the confidence that you're going to take care of them the same way that you do on their Ford vehicle and exceed their expectations. The thing that we teach, and I think this is where you help us with the technology augmentation, is we want people leaving our dealer clients, service drives, and showroom floors feeling like they never want to do business with anyone else anywhere else. And if you can deliver that kind of experience and also provide them the level of insight using the data platforms that you guys have, I think it makes all that even more possible.
Yeah, I think, and it's one of those things. It's one of those things, like we said early on, when we were chatting, is like there's all these moments and opportunities to erode that trust and loyalty. One of the biggest things that can do that above all else is compromising their data, having a breach, having misuse of that information. And so, right now we just dealers out there, go look at your sales guys' and gals' cell phones. Look how many photos are sitting there. Look at the manila envelope sitting there with photocopies of driver's license and insurance cards, and forget synthetic fraud that's on the rise, like fraudsters. Even if they're
Can you just explain for the audience synthetic fraud? Just give me a very basic understanding of what you're talking about.
Yeah. So synthetic fraud is basically where, scammers, fraudsters build up digital profiles that make them look like they're real people. And so it becomes harder to detect. They could come in with an ID that basically looks real and passes authenticity checks, which, by the way, we do as well, and then goes and checks third-party databases that confirm and look for the markers. We happen to check over 100 different data sources: Social Security, telecom, so OFAC, bad actor, terrorist watch list type things, to look for the potential of fraudsters. But what makes it even better is that when you pair that together with insurance verification, you actually increase the detection of fraud significantly, because the likelihood, the synthetic fraudsters have not yet, they will maybe eventually, but they have not yet caught up with being able to then have a login, get an insurance policy issued, have a login, be able to log in that moment, and then verify through all those checks, which include motor vehicle checks, which check driver abstracts, so they got to build up a driving history, Clue, which checks accident history, and all the other things that insurance companies do, fairly sophisticated financial institutions are doing to make sure that they're not insuring bad actors. You now get the added benefit by combining these two. And so synthetic fraud's on the rise. There's massive losses that are happening right now. There's basically, they're saying about 79% of auto dealers reported being impacted by about 7.9 billion in auto lender losses due to synthetic fraud from 2023. It's massive. Dealers care about it. I'm not saying anything that they may not know the magnitude, but they're talking about it. But talk is cheap. Yeah. Take action, right? And so I think that's where, when you start pairing things together, then unlocking the data, and then, quite frankly, if I'm a dealership, I would actually take as a competitive advantage and differentiator and let people know that I care about them and that I care about their data and that I'm protecting it for them, so that they don't fear all this sharing of information. It's a probing process to go through and get a credit check and this and that, and to go buy a car. It's pretty invasive. But
yeah, and I think the more that we can humanize that experience in the form of letting them know it's because they're under your care, as is their PII. I think that's critically important for them to understand as well. Talk to me about the underlying technology. Is it blockchain that is going and cross verifying? How is that happening? Is it literally just going out into the web and crawling and finding other pieces of data that will facilitate the veracity?
Yes.
Is that how it works?
Well, so the way that it works is the following. It goes to your insurance company in that moment and checks, eliminating the phone call and getting that data. So it basically logs in behind the scenes over API and other methods to base it securely, and goes in and it grabs the information. And our system, what's unique about what Motives Check My Driver does, is it pulls that data back and runs it through what is it effectively an AI adequacy check that compares the rules, the requirements for the moment they're in. Like if you're leasing a car or financing, you might have different liability limits or care about full coverage differently than a loaner or a test drive. We have all those rules built in so that you can set them to determine whether or not the insurance is active or adequate. But the misnomer that's out there, and quite frankly, we get asked this all the time: is there some database that you go to? And there isn't. There are the databases that are currently relied on by auto loan servicing providers and others are dated. The data is not updated very frequently. It's inconsistent, and basically can't be relied on for real-time verification in the moment. When you think about auto loan servicing, by the time the letter for that lien holder or additional interest letter comes in the mail to the loan servicer,
it's past tense.
It's past tense. What if I paid my bill? Imagine, talk about customer dissatisfaction. Calling me, hey, your insurance is, we got a notice of cancellation. Oh, I already paid it. By the way, what if I didn't pay it and I just told you that? Now what do you got to do? You got to go call the insurance company. We cut all that out and just basically say, right now, in this moment, is it active, and do you have the right amount of insurance for the thing you're trying to do right now?
Right.
That's the way it works.
Yep. Oh, that makes sense. And again, it sounds again, like I was saying, the sexy aspect of it is not in the insurance verification. However, I will tell you this: the time when you're going to appreciate it is the moment that you didn't utilize it, and now you're feeling the pain of the exposure, right? And that's like any other insurance, quote unquote, insurance experience.
Well, Sandy, like this is one of those other things that dealers said. Well, I have commercial insurance.
Right, right,
And
right.
I give this example, and I've said this before. It's one of these funny things. It's like, they're going through the motions of checking insurance verification. Why? To reduce their risk and exposure. Except we talked about earlier, the piece of paper that you're looking at doesn't mean anything. So unless you call, quite frankly, it's not worth the energy or effort. You can actually save the time and just not even bother. However, by relying on your commercial insurance, when you have losses, small little ones that add up, that's called frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Big ones that happen
Shock
occasionally,
losses,
called
sure.
severity. The
Yep.
combination of those things result in what's called your loss experience.
Yep.
Basically, insurance companies make money. They collect premium and they pay losses. If they're paying out more than you're paying, guess what happens to your premium? It's going to go up, or they might drop you, and that ultimately costs your dealership real money. So we talk on one side of the equation about, like, improving, sell more new cars, sell more used cars, acquire cars cheaper to make more profit, delight your customers so they return. That's all making money. But there's this whole other world that says, with all that money that you make, do you know what I'm worried about? Keeping it. I like the money
Absolutely.
that I make, and I want to keep it. And so between the FTC fines that will eventually be levied, as they start cracking down, and there are cases starting to unfold for FTC violations associated with data privacy, for sure. Obviously, there's the big breach by the big DMS vendor that's out there that's unfolding.
We can talk about it. I mean, it's no secret.
No
There's
secret.
there's plenty of companies that are pointing to that specific incident very often to make people more aware. It's the old "it'll never happen to me" syndrome that we suffer from. It's not just in the automotive space; it's in every business climate and vertical, because we see it. We're inside and outside of automotive at our company, and so we see the same attitude is pervasive. It's not going to happen to me. We think it's never going to happen to me. Until it does.
Sandy, I give this analogy, and it's silly, but I shared. I started out in insurance, and I say to myself, I buy insurance on my home, but I don't light a fire in the middle of my living room because I'm hoping.
I do. I have a fireplace there, though, just for the record.
No, in the middle of the floor of my living room, because I got homeowner insurance. So yeah, listen, I'll keep it control. So I say things, Jersey guy. I say things for effect, right?
Yeah.
So I give these kinds of examples, but they exist all over the place. Real talk example, right? For example, you go and you rent out a loaner car, right, or a rental, and someone damages the car, and that's loss of use. That's customer dissatisfaction for the next person that was coming in that was earmarked for that car.
Absolutely.
The time it's going to take to go fix and repair that car, the potential that it may or may not potentially be covered. We have an example of a customer who verified insurance by looking at an ID card, which we said isn't verification, but they confirmed they saw an ID card that said they had insurance, but it was a commercial auto policy which didn't have rental coverage on it. How can you know? You can't know by looking at an ID card whether or not rental's included or excluded. So now that the blowback of that loss to the vehicle is also coming back to the dealership. So you look at each of these moments, there are instances and use cases that say, why not just shore up the tides, button some things down, streamline the process for the customers, and then what do we start this whole thing on? Unlock the data that is a byproduct of this.
Absolutely.
Know your customers better and turn them into weapons in the business. And that's what you and I have been spending a whole ton of time over the past few months, really looking at how do we actually weaponize the dealership with something that they are going to do eventually anyway.
It's like I said to you, it's the sexy side of insurance verification and validation. I think you go from I'm going to introduce a new term. I'll give you the copyright on it. viewиfication versus verification or validation, right? I mean, that's really what ends up happening. We look at a piece of paper and therefore it's magically verified and validated. And the truth of the matter is that it isn't. But I think, again, we speak to the sexier side of the entire deal, which is utilizing the data and repurposing it in a way that's going to help you grow your business, serve your clients more proficiently and effectively, and really leave them with the feeling that they'll never want to do business anywhere else with anyone else. And that's the goal. That should be the goal for every one of our businesses, is that they never want to go anywhere else to do business because of how they feel when they're in your business. And that's, to me, the gold standard at the end of the day. And I think what you guys do allows us, again, from Sandy Strymon Associates perspective, allows us to amplify the teaching that we do, every single day in businesses throughout the country to deliver that kind of an experience. Talk to me for just a quick second. Do you see a opportunity either in the near future or distant future where having a platform like Motives gives a dealer or a business an opportunity to reduce their insurance premiums because of their preemptive approach to insurance verification and validation?
Yeah. So that's a fantastic question. So as an insurance guy, what I will say is less risk definitely has better business outcomes, and those outcomes have yet to be truly driven ultimately into the premium cost reduction, but
Mhm.
absolutely. So like you saw movements. Let me just draw a quick parallel for a moment, then I'll bring it to where things
Sure.
are in the dealership. Central, when you get homeowners insurance or in automotive, since we're talking about automotive, Progressive give you the thing to plug into the car, the telematics, the smart
Right.
sensors, the devices, those kinds of things. The intelligent brake, whether it's intelligent braking systems, passive alarms, each of these things you get credits, discounts, whatever in your
Mhm.
home, water center, the central station. All of these things are risk preventative measures.
Yep.
And when you shore up your tides and you are less risky, insurance companies will drive premiums down. So there are things that we're doing as industry folks coming out of the insurance industry to work with various insurance brokers and insurance carriers to draw the actual statistical significance between those two things so that a couple outcomes could be possible. One, just lower premium, get a discount. Two,
Right.
get the same, so that's the same coverage for less money. Maybe get better deductibles for the same money, right?
Right.
Or potentially offer other kinds of incentives in other areas where they can get more coverage for the same money. And
Mhm.
so, because one of the things I've been talking about with some colleagues of ours in the industry, like Tom Klein and others, that are talking about that really look at insurance companies, dealers' insurance policies, and it seems to be that most dealerships are underinsured in terms of their total liability exposure. And so back to the keeping money equation, right? If you can save money and buy more coverage or get more coverage for the same money, I think those are two sides of the same coin. But ultimately, the exposure between the cyber liability exposure and the actual liability itself, plus the physical damage, is absolutely prime for a risk management opportunity. And I would basically say, I guess if we're talking out to the dealer world, talk to your broker,
Mhm.
talk to your insurance carrier, talk to your reinsurers, and ask them the question, can I save money if I do this by reducing this risk? We are working that from the industry angle, but actually it takes a bit of a swell. So I would basically, that would be a challenge out to the viewers out there, is start having those conversations, because less risk should equal less money and
Agreed.
premium.
Agreed. Agreed. As we've been going through this process, and it's so organic. I love the way this whole thing is unfolded for us because it's so organic and just so natural. And really, again, my shameless plug for the 7 pillars of killer business development. This is literally pillar number 4 at work. You and I, and pulling in Scott, obviously, and Darren and Fred, and Joel and Emily and Ron on my team as well, where we're really crafting a solution that answers multiple manifold questions within a dealership environment. And I've started to put together this list of ways that you can truly, and I use the word weaponize. It can be a tough word because sometimes it just sounds a little smarmy, you know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is how do you turn it into a tool or a resource that you can use in order to grow your business in multiple different ways? And that used vehicle acquisition piece, I want to tie it back to for just a second. As we're talking about this, I wrote down two things in the last 5 minutes that I know that we can do, that we can execute on from a process and procedural perspective as it relates to the data capture that you guys provide, and also a process that can be put together in a dealership environment, literally in inside of 30 minutes, that will help dealers acquire more used vehicles more quickly every single day. And that's what we're talking about here. You know, as I said, the sexier side of insurance validation and verification, the data, the underlying data that supports what you do. So it's exciting, buddy. I'm looking forward to it. Let's switch gears as we're coming up on about 45 minutes. Let's talk about, we've got an event tomorrow night, as long as Mother Nature cooperates, in the Big Easy, Nolans, at the NADA convention. You want to talk a little bit about the party we've got scheduled for tomorrow night?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've teamed up together with a bunch of our partners, and Dealer Blue Sky, Bowtie,
Okay. Charisma.
Charisma, and of course us here. We've got a 1800s French Quarter villa. The address will be coming out. We got to register to find out where the location is going to be.
Yeah, let me put that up right now. I'll put up the registration URL if you have an interest in joining us. Now, we are getting close to the limit in terms of how many people we can have, but we have maybe 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 slots that we can squeeze a few more people into, or just give them a different time to join us, during the evening. But I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So, we plan to reconnect with, obviously, some good friends and partners, meet new folks that we never met before.
Mhm.
And we're there to have a good time and to, kind of provide some thought leadership and hang out and talk and just talk about how we can move the industry forward together. The group of folks that came together to put this thing on wasn't by happenstance. There's a reason that we're all there. And if you're curious to understand what that all is, that's a great place to hear more about it. We've been sharing a bit about what we're up to, but there's a lot of things that are going on, cross-pollination, amongst all of us. So the on the screen there, motives.com/NADA 2025. That's the link for pre-registration. There'll be communications coming out with the specific details. The weather is tough. We're coming down from Jersey. There's a lot of snow here in the ground. One of my guys, Scott Trainer, is already down in New Orleans. Sent me a photo this morning from his hotel room. It looks like there's snow on the ground in New Orleans. So everybody,
we're gonna have bourbon slushies on Bourbon Street, buddy.
Right? And well, they've got those big. What are they? The hurricanes.
Hurricanes.
They can scoop it from the outside. So
yeah, Battle Bryant's, no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt. Well, listen, we would love to have people join us down the Big Easy, whether you catch us tomorrow night at the pre-party, or we catch you, Thursday or Friday on the expo floor when they open it up. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fantastic event. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys for sure. And any last thought that you want to share with the audience before we wrap it up over here? I'm going to put up your website again, and then I'll put up your email address. If anybody's got specific questions that they want to shoot to Justin, or myself, I'll put our email addresses up there as well. Feel free to reach out. Happy to answer those questions. But you can find more information about Motives at motives.com, and then Jay Silver at motives.com if you want to send Justin a specific question that you may have based on today's show, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely be making our way through the conference floor. Look out for Sandy. Look out for myself. Tap us on the shoulder. Introduce yourself. Say hello. If we don't know you, we'd love to. We love having interesting conversations. As Sandy started in this story, Sandy's got a knack. I tell him this all the time. He knows it. I know he knows it. But he's got a knack for just seeing something and connecting people and things together in a way that's super unique. And so if you see Sandy out on the floor, or you see me out on the floor, you never know where good conversation is going to lead. So yeah, we'd love to chat with you and get to know you more.
No question. And I just put up sandycerami.com, Academy 365. If you want more information, whether you're a B2B business that serves automotive or you're a dealership or dealer group, we're happy to help. Our goal is to serve clients, period, dot, end of story. My right-hand guy, Ron Marvo, the man with the devastating right hand, looks like Clark Kent. And I suspect at some point in time he will or he may have changed in a phone booth in his day. But he and his incredible wife, Nikki, are the architects, along with me on Academy 365. We're excited about what we're doing over there, so we'd love to share more with you. And if you have a specific question for me, again, Sandy at sandycerami.com is the easiest way to shoot me a question. And I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow morning, buddy. I'm picking you up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 5:15 a.m. I'm going to work on making sure I don't have bedhead because you got that fresh cut. I got to make sure I'm keeping pace with you, and I'll look forward to having a cup of coffee with you tomorrow morning, pal.
Beautiful. See you then.
All right, man. It's time to step up to stand out, and we're out. Have a great day, everybody. Safe
Bye.
travels into New Orleans.